they're going to do different than what we have
Can I ask a question about that? I mean, can you?
No.
Can you be a little bit more specific about, I mean, there's a lot of potential things that we could do differently. Are you looking for anything in particular as a response to? I mean, is this in relation to the United Nations or something else?
Well, actually, the foreign policy, our foreign policy is rotten. We are doing everything wrong in the world. How can we are really we are acting as terrorists and hitting the terrorism? I don't know who is the terrorist.
So we'll give everyone a chance to respond, and I will randomly choose the first person with my eyes closed. And then just pass it back.
Yeah, I just want to say two comments. One is, to me, it's fairly clear that in the next election, there's going to be a change in president. That's pretty obvious, and it'll probably be a Democrat. Secondly, the Congress is probably going to have a far greater congressional Democratic majority. You have to understand the last, I guess, 3 decades, we've had the anti-UN policy, except for the brief 8 years of Clinton's administration, because of their orientation toward the UN generally and the Republican Party, particularly the right wing of it. And I think that's going to change. So in answer to your question, what are we going to do different from our congressmen? Our congressmen have been silenced pretty much over the past several decades. And I think there's going to be a much more aggressive attempt to have a responsible role in the United Nations, which to me is something that will benefit not only the United States, but the whole world.
Well, I think probably what you're getting at and what you're feeling is that there was a sea change in the national political will with the last election. And it was an unprecedented sweep into power by the Democratic Party. People were really tired of the direction the country was going. They wanted a change. And democracy worked because people went to the polls and they made that change happen. Unfortunately, one of the main issues was the war in Iraq. And as we know, we are still in Iraq. Now, I've heard some people blame the current Congress for not being more aggressive. And while it is true that if I was there, I would vote to shut down all money, except money to bring the troops home, because Congress does have that power. But we're sort of stuck. We need a 60% majority in order to overcome vetoes. If we have a Republican president, we certainly hope we'll take back the White House this time. But we're sort of stuck right now because we were tricked into giving the president authority to go to war, and there's really no review process for that. If somebody cheats you in a business contract, you can sue them, you can go up to the Supreme Court. There's really no review process to go after a president when he lies to get the authority from Congress to go to war. The problem is we don't have a 60% majority now. So if we vote to take away the authority that he has, he'll just veto it. So we either need a 60% majority or a president that isn't going to go dragging us in to corrupt war. So I agree with you. I agree with the feeling that we're not going as far in the direction that people want, but I think we need more Democrats, and then we need to keep getting to the polls and voting to make that change.
I want to respond to a couple of things that John said. John said that the Democratic Congress was tricked by this president, and I feel very, very badly for anybody who could get tricked by this president. This president's motives have been transparent from day one, as far as from where I've been sitting. Like I said, I'm a high school math teacher, and sometimes I use my executive authority in my classroom. And on the day that Colin Powell gave his trickery speech to the United Nations, which we all know is completely bunk, I actually had my first period class, pre-calculus class, watch that. And I said, you know, we're going to put math on hold for half an hour here. Because you guys are juniors and seniors, and, you know, if we go to war here, you're the ones that they might call on to go fight. And I think that it is in your interest as a citizen to listen to what's going on. This is a big deal. Colin Powell gave his presentation, and when I turned it off, I said to my class, I said, I don't know about you, but I don't think he was even convinced that what he was saying was true. So about the Democratic Congress being tricked by this president, they rolled over. Okay, they gave up. They decided not to fight. What will I do different? Well, I'll fight. I have already said that it's very hard to pin a politician down on a number of issues. But I will pledge, and I would challenge my competitors in this race to do the same thing. I will pledge right now to vote no on any supplementals to continue this war or any other illegal wars, and that includes Afghanistan, around the world. The Congress has the power to do this, and they abdicated that power. They weren't tricked into it, they abdicated. They didn't want the responsibility. I'm ready to take on that responsibility. I want to do it for my children. I want to do it for the children of America. I want to do it for the children of the world. It needs to be done. We cannot allow this lawlessness in our Congress anymore. I'm sorry, not Congress, in our government, which Congress essentially allowed. So I had some other things to say, and I got off on a thing, and so I'll pass it now.
Well, I do want to say that I respect and admire Senator Jeff Bingaman and Tom Edolph, and will be in that type of mode, I think, politically. But I also want to say that I very much support the work of Senator Jim Webb, Democrat from Virginia, who has a resolution on the floor of the Senate that says George Bush has absolutely no authority to invade or start an attack on Iran. We heard a lot tonight about Iraq. We really need to be focusing on Iran because that's where the drumbeat is now. Bush and Cheney want to drop a massive military strike on Iran before they leave office. And the only thing that will stop them, well, what I hear is a lot of the generals in the Pentagon are totally opposed to it. But it's only the American people speaking up now that will prevent another huge problem in the Middle East.
Before I say what we would do different if we were electing Greens to Congress, I want to disagree with Mr. Adams here. There is a remedy. It's called impeachment.
Yes.
And Nancy Pelosi put it off the table. What is that? I was commenting over dinner, we don't have an opposition party in the United States. When Clinton was elected, the Republicans sure as heck were an opposition party. That's why we still don't have universal health care 15 years later and a number of other things. So the short answer, what will we do differently? We'll be an opposition party. When the president or the majority say we're going to do something, we believe it's wrong, we're going to stand up and say we do not support this action. We're going to stop it. Specifically, I want to point out Middle East policy. The Green Party nationally is the only national political party in this country that I know of that has supported the Palestinian right to return. The Democrats and Republicans are Zionists, and they won't go there at all. We know we need a two-state solution in Israel, Palestine. We know that, and we all probably here know the history of where Iraq's borders came from. They were drawn by Western powers. That's why we're having this trouble in Kurdistan right now, because their homeland was cut in half and given half to Turkey and half to Iraq.
It was cut into 5 pieces.
Okay,
One with
I
Russia,
stand corrected.
one with Syria, one with Iraq, one with Iran, and one with, let me see. Turkey.
Yes.
And it's only in Iraq that they have their self-rule. In other places, they have no rights.
So we may end up supporting a three-state solution in Iraq, and one of those will be Kurdistan. How we're going to redraw those boundaries without more war, I don't know, but we have to be aware that the boundaries of many Middle Eastern countries were drawn by Western powers with no sense of what the indigenous boundaries were 100 or 1,000 years ago. And we look at Kuwait, we cut off most of Iraq's border to the sea to put Kuwait there. I could go on, but I think I probably have...
Jordan from Palestine. Jordan was cut from Palestine.
I'd like to echo the impeachment as remedy. I'd also like to echo the Palestinian right of return. I'm Russian Jewish on my father's side, but I feel that the Jewish state is not acting in its best interests, and certainly not in the interests of the other nations and cultures of the region.